All right, let's dive into some really cool research today. We're looking at the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence and their work on interactive deep learning. Their project, NoIDLE, aims to, well, make deep learning a lot more accessible and user-friendly, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is how they're combining human-computer interaction with these powerful deep learning models.
Hmm.
It's this blend that allows for real-time feedback, and adaptation, making the results much more personalized and effective.
And they've picked a use case that I think a lot of people can relate to. They're looking at how NoIDL could be used to create interactive photo books. So imagine a family, maybe the Smiths, coming back from a trip to Canada, and they want to put together a photo book. But instead of going through all the hassle of sorting photos and writing captions, they could use NoIDLE.
Right, and the system lets them interact with it really naturally. Like they can talk to it, use gaze tracking, even gestures. They can just tell the system about their trip, point at things in the photos, people or places, and say what they like.
So the system's not just taking orders, it's actually learning from all this input, right? It's figuring out how the family talks, recognizing different family members, and changing its suggestions for photos and layouts and captions based on what they tell it.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where the four key perspectives of the project come in. They've kind of broken down this whole challenge of building a really interactive deep learning system into these four areas: natural language processing, multimodal, multi-sensor interfaces, machine learning, and human-computer interaction.
Okay, let's start with natural language processing, or NLP. Since language seems to be a big part of this whole interaction, how does NoIDLE actually approach NLP here?
Well, the researchers are going beyond just understanding basic commands. They're trying to get these multimedia deep learning models to understand the user's specific way of speaking and the context of what they're talking about.
So like, if Mr. Smith says, show me pictures of Sarah by the water, the system can figure out he means a lake, even if he doesn't actually say lake, because they were in Canada, right?
That's the idea. And they're also developing some pretty advanced caption generation techniques. These captions can be tailored to the family's preferences, so they include specific details and reflect their style.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's almost like having an AI that not only understands what you're saying, but also how you're saying it and what you really want to express.
That's a good way to put it. And this understanding is helped even more by the multimodal, multi-sensor interfaces, or MMI, part of the project. By using gaze tracking and pointing gestures, the system can refine its object recognition and make sure it's understanding what the user wants.
So if Mrs. Smith points at a photo and says, this one should be on the first page, the system knows exactly which photo she means and can use that feedback, right?
Exactly. The system's constantly getting information from different sources, not just what the user says, but also where they're looking and what they're pointing at. This kind of multimodal input makes the interaction much more intuitive and robust, I guess.
Now let's talk about the core engine driving all of this. Machine learning, or ML. NoIDLE is trying to address those classic ML challenges, like not having enough data and needing models to be interpretable. Can you talk about how they're approaching these challenges?
Well, they're using something called active learning techniques to deal with the data scarcity problem. So the system will actually ask for feedback on certain examples. It's smart about it, though. It picks the examples that will teach it the most to make learning more efficient.
So the system's not just waiting around for the user to label everything, it's actually figuring out what information is most valuable and going after it.
Exactly. And they're also exploring interpretable deep learning models. These models let the users understand why the system is making certain predictions. This transparency helps build trust and lets the user get more meaningful feedback.
So if the system suggests a caption that doesn't seem right, the user can see why it came up with that caption and give better guidance.
That's right. And they're also looking into few-shot learning. This would let the system learn new things quickly from just a few examples. Like, if the Smiths mention Aunt Mary once, the system should be able to recognize her in other photos without needing a lot more input.
It's like the system gets to know the family over time, just like a person would.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
And finally, we have human-computer interaction, or HCI. This is all about designing interfaces that are intuitive and engaging, so interacting with the system feels natural and enjoyable.
So it's not just about the technical stuff. It's about making the experience smooth and intuitive, even fun to use.
Yeah, exactly. They're even looking at using gamification to make the process more engaging and encourage users to give really good feedback.
Now that we've gone over those four key perspectives of NoIDLE, let's talk about how they're going to evaluate this whole system.
Hmm.
Evaluating a project like this with all the complex human-AI interaction, it can't just be a simple thumbs up or thumbs down. So how do they plan to approach it?
Their evaluation plan is pretty comprehensive. It involves user studies, data collection, and statistical analysis. They'll be looking at objective measures like how long it takes people to complete tasks, how accurate the object recognition is, things like that. But they'll also look at subjective measures like how satisfied users are with the experience, how engaging they find it.
So they're trying to capture both the technical performance
Yeah.
and the nuances of the human-AI partnership, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. They want to understand not only if the system works, but how well it works with real people and how those people experience the interaction. And they plan to do these evaluations in traditional desktop settings and in immersive virtual reality environments.
VR for evaluation, that's interesting. Why VR?
Well, VR gives them a much more controlled environment. They can get a lot more data, especially about gaze tracking, body language, even subtle cues that might show someone is confused or frustrated.
So the VR environment isn't just about creating photo books in VR. It's a powerful tool for understanding how people interact with the system and gathering data that can be used to make the experience better in real-world settings as well.
That's right. The insights from these VR studies could have implications way beyond photo book creation. Imagine using this knowledge in healthcare, education, even creative fields.
This is where things start to get really exciting. But before we jump into the potential impact of No Ideally and what they see for the future, let's just recap what we've covered so far.
Okay, so No Ideally is this ambitious research project trying to make deep learning more interactive, personalized, and accessible. They're approaching it from these four angles: natural language processing, multimodal multi-sensor interfaces, machine learning, and human-computer interaction. Each one plays a key role in creating a seamless and intuitive experience for users, like our Smiths family, who want to use the power of deep learning without needing a computer science degree.
So we have this powerful system that understands our language, our gestures, even our intentions. It learns from our feedback and changes how it behaves. And it's designed to be user-friendly, even for people who aren't tech-savvy. The big question is, what can we do with this? What are the potential applications, the broader impact of this research? Let's explore that after a quick break.
Okay, so we've established that No IDLE could really change how we interact with AI. But the real test is its impact beyond these photo books. The researchers mentioned some promising applications in healthcare and smart manufacturing. Let's start with healthcare. What kind of possibilities do they see for No IDLE there?
Well, the report talks about how IDL systems could help doctors analyze medical images much more precisely. Like imagine a doctor looking at a complicated medical scan. An IDL system, trained on tons of similar scans and the doctor's own expertise, could point out subtle patterns or things that look off, things the doctor might miss on their own. So it's not about replacing the doctor's judgment. It's more like giving them an AI assistant that can provide a second opinion and help them make diagnoses faster and with more information.
Exactly. The system can actually learn from the doctor's feedback, so it understands their reasoning and adjusts its analysis to match their expertise. This collaboration could lead to earlier disease detection and more effective treatment plans.
That's a pretty compelling vision for the future of healthcare. What about smart manufacturing? How could No IDL change things there?
The report suggests that IDL could create a truly collaborative environment in factories, where human workers and AI-powered robots work together seamlessly. Imagine a robot that can learn from a skilled human worker's movements, adapting its actions to make production more efficient.
That's a really interesting departure from the idea of robots taking over human jobs. This is about humans and machines using each other's strengths to achieve a shared goal.
Exactly. The human worker brings their experience, intuition, problem-solving skills, and the robot brings its precision, its ability to do repetitive tasks, and to handle physically demanding work. The IDL system acts as the bridge between them, facilitating communication and learning.
One thing that really stood out in the report was the potential for integrating No IDLE with large language models, like ChatGPT. That opens up a whole new set of possibilities, doesn't it? Can you talk about what they envision there?
Yeah, they're talking about a future where the interactive learning capabilities of No IDL are combined with the knowledge and language generation power of ChatGPT. It could lead to AI systems that can not only understand and respond to us, but also generate creative text formats, translate languages, even write different kinds of creative content, and answer questions in a really informative way.
We're talking about AI systems that could become partners in our creative process, helping us write stories, generate personalized learning materials, or even co-create art and music.
Exactly. Imagine brainstorming with an AI that understands your creative vision, suggests new ideas, and can turn those ideas into something real. The possibilities are pretty much endless.
This brings up an important question. How is the No Ideal team going to measure the success of their research? We've touched on their evaluation plan, but what specific metrics will they be using to see how well their system is working?
They've got a multifaceted approach to evaluation, using both objective and subjective measures. On the objective side, they'll be looking at things like task completion times, how accurate the object recognition and identification of individuals is, and how efficient those active learning algorithms are.
So those metrics give a quantifiable assessment of the system's technical performance. What about the subjective measures? How will they capture the user experience?
They'll be using standardized questionnaires and interviews after people interact with the system to assess things like user satisfaction, how easy it is to use, how much they trust the system, and how engaging they find the whole experience. They'll also analyze user feedback to understand how well the system is adapting to individual preferences and learning styles.
It sounds like they're trying to get a complete picture, understanding not just if the system works, but how it fits into the human workflow and how people perceive the interaction.
Exactly. Their goal is to build a system that's not only technically good, but also user-centered, intuitive, and enjoyable to use. That human-centered approach is really important for making sure these IDL systems are widely adopted and successful.
We've talked about the technical details of potential applications and how they plan to evaluate it, but what about the bigger picture? Where do they see this research going in the long run? What's their vision for the future of IDL? We've gone deep into the how it works and the possible uses of no IDL. But what about the big picture, the long-term goal? Where do they see this technology going?
Well, the No IDL project, it's a really significant step towards making deep learning accessible to everyone, not just experts. They imagine a future where this kind of technology isn't stuck in labs and companies, but is available to anyone who has an idea they want to try out.
That's a pretty exciting thought. Imagine anyone, no matter their technical skills, being able to use deep learning to solve problems, build new things, express their creativity.
Right. And they think IDL could change a lot of different areas, not just the ones we talked about. Like they see potential in education.
Yeah.
IDL systems could create learning experiences that are personalized for each student's needs and how they learn best. And in art and design, it could give artists new tools to explore their creativity and even work with AI.
It seems like the possibilities are almost limitless. But the researchers also know that it's important to develop AI responsibly. They talk a lot about needing transparency, explainability, and user control in these IDL systems.
Yeah, they believe that users should understand how these systems work, be able to understand the decisions they make, and have the power to influence their behavior. Focusing on these ethical things is crucial for building trust and making sure IDL is used for good.
It's good to see that the team is thinking about those ethical aspects as they're working on the technology. So as we wrap up our deep dive into No IDL, what are some of the key things our listeners should remember?
I think No IDL really shows the power of humans and AI working together. It shows how we can combine the strengths of both to build systems that are smarter, more intuitive, and easier to use, and how the project focuses on interactive learning, multimodal interfaces, interpretability, and ethical considerations. It sets a high bar for future research in this area.
No IDLE is definitely pushing the boundaries of what's possible with deep learning. And as this technology keeps developing, I think we can expect even more amazing applications to come out of it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into interactive deep learning. We hope you've gotten a better understanding of what this technology can do and the exciting possibilities it holds for the future.